Elon Musk's win may have been X's loss. The world's richest man and Twitter X CEO seeing users flee his social media platform since President Trump won the election. Meanwhile, startup Bluesky appears to be reaping those rewards. Is this a permanent shift in social media habits? Let's talk about it with Christopher Zara. He's the senior editor at Fast Company. He joins us now. He's been writing about this. Christopher, great to see you, my friend. So first, let's talk about how many users have fled Twitter, or X as we are now calling it, since the election.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's a fast-moving situation. I think the last figure that I saw was 2.5 million people have joined Bluesky in the last week, which is basically when the election happened. So, and that was just updated, I think, yesterday. Before that, they were saying about 1 million. So it's moving really quickly. This looks like one of those network effect things where we're really seeing rapid adoption of this platform.
Almost immediate, and that is a pretty dramatic number to hear about. Now, I did also read, though, that traffic, meanwhile, picked up on X. While users fled, traffic picked up. What do you know?
Yeah. Well, I think that there was a bump from people wanting to know what was happening with the election. As a news person, I still use X. I almost feel like I have to just to follow certain kinds of conversations. And I was definitely using it on election night and in the days after the election. So I don't doubt that there was a big spike in usage of X around that. I think the question now is what happens next.
Yeah, I think they had one of their biggest traffic days after the election since the platform had started. I'm curious, Christopher, what you've seen in terms of content moderation leading up to and after the election. Have you noticed a palpable difference on X?
On X itself? Well, I mean, so, Elon Musk bought the platform a few years ago, and it's been slow. I think it's been slowly creeping toward this. The user base has changed a lot because there's a lot more people who are just big fans of Elon Musk on there, and he's also sort of, I think he's amplified a lot of those voices by letting them get verified, and they've built really huge audiences. So I think, especially since he announced that he was all in for Trump, like it shifted, it changed a lot. There's just a lot of, it's tilted toward pro-Trump content. I mean, that's really the way to put it. So if you're trying to sift through that for news, it becomes a lot more difficult. When a news story breaks, you don't necessarily want to hear, all this amplification of users that are tilted toward one side. So it's shifted a lot. And it definitely, when he announced he was going to be all in for Trump, that was a big shift. And then in the lead up to the election, it was a big shift. And I think after the election too, because Trump won, there's a jubilance, I think, with people who wanted him to win. And so that's naturally also being reflected now in the content on X.
Yeah, he wasn't just a supporter. He was Trump's top donor. Many felt he was essentially his running mate. Some feel he was actually the reason that young men turned out in such large numbers, could have put Trump over the top. Not that it was all that close of an election, but there was even reports in the Washington Post that Republican accounts were amplified, that they gained followers at the same pace that Democratic-leaning accounts were losing followers. It's strange credulity to suggest that that's a coincidence, Christopher.
It's unprecedented. I mean, social media is not that. It's a pretty new thing to begin with when we're talking about history, and so like the fact that we have a major social network where the owner and basically person who has the sole last word on anything on there is now suddenly specifically saying, I'm for this candidate, I want this candidate to win. It's unprecedented. Like, we just have never seen something like this before. I don't doubt that it had a big impact on the election and on the way people voted.
I don't either. So let's talk about this Bluesky now. You are on the platform. How is it different from the other social media platforms? And what are your thoughts on the platform thus far, though it's early?
It's early. It's a good beginning. One of the reasons that a lot of people, including myself, are still on X is because it's just been really hard to replicate. I don't quite know why that is. It's tricky to try to explain it, but there's an element of real-time news that exists on X, and you can curate your lists very carefully so you can get news from specific sources. And when you are looking, like I'm in the news business, so when I'm looking for a piece of breaking news, I want to see what people are saying about it in real time, and I want to see what people who are who not just verified, but people who are like reputable are saying about it. And you can curate lists and still do that on X. Bluesky also lets you do that. It obviously doesn't have the usership that X has right now because it's still growing and it's still small. But I think the promise is good. Like if you can do the same thing on Bluesky that you can do on X in terms of like real time news gathering, like I think that's going to be huge. One of the problems with some of the alternatives, Threads is a great example, is they just put this algorithm in there where it's really difficult to find anything in real time. You still just end up getting a lot of stuff that Threads thinks you want to see when really you're just looking for the latest information. So yeah, I think the promise is great on Bluesky. I hope it lasts.
Yeah, I still use X myself. It really is hard to replace what they've built, and certainly the user base is still massive.
Yeah.
Are we seeing news organizations join Bluesky yet?
Yeah, I mean, we did. Fast Company's on there now. We're seeing a lot of, I think all the major news platforms have some presence on there now. There's been a few that have notably left X. I think The Guardian was one that just recently announced they were going to leave X. NPR did a while ago. I think NPR might still be on there, but they said they weren't going to tweet anymore. So yeah, you are seeing the news organizations and you're seeing journalists. Journalists were a big part of early Twitter. They've always been a part of they were always big part of Twitter before Musk took it over. They still obviously are a big part of it, but I think of it with a platform like Bluesky, if they can kind of replicate how Twitter was able to grow into what it was, I think they have a good shot. I think it's still going to be tough it's tough to say whether or not this actually becomes the new Twitter or the new X. It really is. I mean, I feel like we've seen this before where there's been early platforms that have had promise and then just it didn't manifest in the way we thought it was going to.
I feel the same way. We have certainly heard this story before. It's just really difficult to replicate what Twitter X has. I'm curious, so a name lost in all this, and it's a bit ironic, is President-elect Trump's Truth Social. Where is that platform in all of this?
Well, it's there. He still uses it. President-elect Trump does use it, and he was using it. He's been using it to announce, his appointees in the week since the election. And what ends up happening for a lot of like everyday social media users like myself is I just end up seeing the Truth Social stuff come through on X. Like someone will screenshot it and put it in there. I think that's how a lot of it gets spread. Truth Social, I mean, I think because they're publicly traded, you can see the finances are not great there. So like as a business, we know it's a tough sell. I've heard people say, why don't X and Truth Social merge and just become one social network? That's not the craziest idea in the world. So who knows? I think that to answer your question, though, I think like there are people on Truth Social, obviously, but a lot of what spreads outside of Truth Social is done through other social networks where people screenshot the Truth Social posts and then place them elsewhere.
Yeah, truthfully, Christopher, I'd never been on it. I have, like you, seen those posts screenshotted and posted on Twitter. And the stock, Trump Media, truly trades like a meme stock. It makes no sense. There are no fundamentals to the value of that company. And I've heard the user base is somewhere around 100,000. So why Elon would want to acquire it, maybe just a favor to President Trump more than anything. Finally, Fidelity recently estimated that X had cratered some 80% of its value since Elon acquired it. Presumably that number is cratering even further. Have you heard any plans about a change of direction for Twitter or jumping truly into television, creating some sort of a network?
I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, so the big reason for that cratering that you're talking about is the lack of content moderation that's on there. Advertisers don't want to be near that kind of stuff. I mean, they really don't they don't even like the news business because they think it's a little too dicey. Like they didn't want to be around COVID-19 content, for example, when that was happening. Like brands, like, big brands want to be in an environment where that is safe, and X is not a safe environment. So if you're an advertiser, that's a tough sell. And so I really honestly don't know what they're going to do. And maybe Elon Musk doesn't care. Like, he has money and he can continue to use this as a megaphone, which is what he's been doing. The fact that it might make some advertising money is, maybe beside the point. When you're talking about the way he's been using it.
It does not appear he's all that concerned. Well, it's really been an interesting conversation. Please follow Christopher Zara on X and, of course, now on Bluesky, and follow Fast Company as well. Really enjoyed it, Christopher. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.